Ella always thought her life would follow a predictable path. Graduate college, start a career, meet someone nice, settle down. But fate had other plans. It was a crisp autumn evening when Ella first laid eyes on Mateo. She was rushing to catch the subway after a long day at her publishing job, weaving through the crowded station. As she hurried down the stairs, her heel caught on a step, and she stumbled forward. Strong arms caught her before she could fall. Ella looked up into the most striking pair of dark eyes she'd ever seen. They belonged to a tall, handsome stranger with olive skin and tousled black hair. "Careful there," he said with a slight accent, steadying her. "Are you all right?" Yes, thank you," Ella stammered, flustered by his intense gaze. She could feel herself blushing. "I'm Mateo," he said with a warm smile that made her heart skip. "Ella," she replied, returning his smile shyly. Just then, the train pulled into the station. "That's my train," Ella said reluctantly. "I have to go, but thank you again for catching me." "It was my pleasure," Mateo said. "Perhaps we'll meet again someday, Ella." As the doors closed between them, Ella couldn't tear her eyes away from Mateo's. There was something magnetic about him that she couldn't explain. She found herself hoping their paths would cross again, even as she told herself not to be silly. New York was a big city. What were the chances? But over the next few weeks, Ella kept seeing Mateo everywhere. At her favorite coffee shop, browsing books at the store where she worked, jogging in the park near her apartment. It was as if the universe was conspiring to bring them together. Finally, after nearly a month of these chance encounters, Mateo approached her one day as she was leaving work. "Ella," he said, flashing that heart-stopping smile. "I hope you don't think I'm stalking you, but I can't stop thinking about you since that day at the subway. Would you like to have dinner with me sometime?" Ella's pulse quickened. She knew she should be wary of this handsome stranger, but something about Mateo drew her in. His eyes held a depth of emotion that stirred her soul. "I'd love to," she found herself saying. Their first date was magical. Mateo took her to a tiny romantic Italian restaurant tucked away on a quiet street. As they talked and laughed over candlelight, Ella felt as if she'd known him for years. He was charming, intelligent, and passionate about his work as an architect, but there was also an air of mystery about Mateo that intrigued her. He spoke little of his past or his family, deftly changing the subject whenever she asked. Ella sensed he was hiding something, but she was too captivated to press him on it. As the weeks passed, Ella fell deeply in love with Mateo. He awakened feelings in her she'd never experienced before. When they were together, the rest of the world seemed to fade away. His touch sent electricity coursing through her body. His kisses left her breathless and yearning for more. For the first time in her life, Ella felt truly alive. She began taking risks she never would have considered before, quitting her stable but unfulfilling job to pursue her dream of writing a novel, spontaneously jetting off to Paris with Mateo for a romantic weekend. He encouraged her to embrace adventure and follow her passions. But as close as they became, Ella still felt Mateo holding part of himself back. There were times when a shadow would pass over his face, his eyes growing distant. He'd get mysterious phone calls that he'd step away to take, speaking in rapid Spanish. Ella tried to ignore the nagging doubts, focusing instead on how happy Mateo made her. But she couldn't shake the feeling that he was keeping secrets. Everything changed the night of her 30th birthday. Mateo had planned an elaborate surprise party for her, inviting all her friends and family. As Ella mingled with her guests, basking in the glow of their love, she noticed Mateo slip away from the crowd. Curious, she followed him out to the balcony. She found him leaning against the railing, staring out at the twinkling city lights with a troubled expression. "Mateo, is everything okay?" she asked, placing a hand on his arm. He turned to her, his eyes filled with an emotion she couldn't quite read. "Ella, there's something I need to tell you," he said gravely. Ella's stomach clenched with sudden dread. "What is it?" Mateo took a deep breath. "I haven't been entirely honest with you about who I am. My real name isn't Mateo Alvarez. It's Miguel Herrera." Ella stared at him in confusion. "I don't understand. Why would you lie about your name?" "Because Miguel Herrera is a wanted man in Spain," he said quietly. I'm not really an architect. I used to work for a powerful crime syndicate in Madrid. I was their top money launderer. Ella felt as if the ground had dropped out from under her. This couldn't be real. The man she loved, the man she thought she knew, was a criminal? But how? Why? She stammered. Mateo, or Miguel, ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I never wanted that life. I was young and desperate when they recruited me. Once I was in, there was no way out. They threatened my family if I tried to leave. He gripped her shoulders, his eyes pleading. Ella, you have to believe me. I'm not that person anymore. I managed to escape, to build a new life here. Meeting you, loving you, it's made me want to be a better man. Ella's mind was reeling. She pulled away from him, needing space to process this bombshell. I don't even know who you are, she whispered. I'm still the same man you fell in love with, Mateo insisted. Everything between us has been real. I just couldn't tell you the whole truth until I knew I could trust you completely. How can I possibly trust you now? Ella cried. Our entire relationship has been built on lies. Not lies, Mateo said. Just omissions, to protect you, and myself. He reached for her, but Ella backed away. I need some time, she said. This is a lot to take in. Without waiting for a response, she fled back inside to the party. Making her excuses to her confused guests, she left her own birthday celebration early. She spent a sleepless night tossing and turning, trying to reconcile the Mateo she knew with this stranger named Miguel. The next morning, Ella called in sick to work and spent the day wandering the city in a daze. Her mind kept replaying every moment with Mateo, searching for clues she might have missed. Had it all been an act? A carefully crafted persona to hide his true identity? But her heart refused to believe that. The connection they shared, the love she felt, that had to be real, didn't it? As the sun began to set, Ella found herself in Central Park. She sank onto a bench, emotionally and physically exhausted. That's when she spotted a familiar figure approaching. Mateo sat down beside her, leaving a respectful distance between them. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Ella broke the silence. Tell me everything, she said. I want the whole truth, no more secrets. Mateo nodded solemnly. Over the next hour, he poured out his story. How he'd grown up poor in a rough Madrid neighborhood. How the syndicate had promised him wealth and status if he used his financial skills for them. How he'd been seduced by the glamorous lifestyle at first, before the reality of what he was involved in set in. I tried to leave several times, he told her, but they always pulled me back in with threats. Not just to me, but to my mother and sisters. I felt trapped. Ella listened without interrupting, trying to keep an open mind. She could hear the pain and regret in Mateo's voice. Then, one day, I stumbled across information about a rival gang planning to take out our leadership, he continued. I saw my chance. I went to the police and offered to turn state's witness in exchange for protection and immunity. His eyes grew haunted. The raid didn't go as planned. There was a shootout. People died. On both sides. In the chaos, I managed to slip away. I knew it was my only chance to truly escape that life. Mateo's voice grew soft. I made my way to New York and started over with a new identity. I swore I'd never get involved in anything illegal again. I've been living an honest life here, Ella. Until I met you, I was just going through the motions. But you made me feel alive again. Made me believe I could be worthy of love and happiness. He reached for her hand tentatively. This time, Ella didn't pull away. I wanted to tell you the truth so many times, he said. But I was afraid of losing you, afraid you'd see me as a monster. Ella was quiet for a long moment, processing everything she'd heard. Part of her was still angry and hurt by his deception, but a larger part understood why he'd kept his past hidden. I don't think you're a monster, Mateo, she said finally. I think you're a man who made some bad choices, but who's trying to be better. The question is, can I trust that the man I fell in love with is the real you? Mateo's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. He is. Ella, loving you has made me want to be the best version of myself. You inspire me to be honest, to be brave, to be worthy of you. I don't want any more secrets between us. Ella searched his face, seeing only sincerity and love reflected there. She knew trusting him again wouldn't be easy, but she also knew deep in her soul that what they had was worth fighting for. "Okay," she said softly, "let's start over. No more lies, no more hiding, just us being completely real with each other." Mateo's face lit up with hope. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "Thank you," he whispered. "I promise I'll spend every day proving myself worthy of your trust." As Ella melted into his embrace, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She knew there would be challenges ahead. Mateo's past could come back to haunt them. There would be difficult conversations and moments of doubt. But she also knew that true love was rare and precious. What she and Mateo shared was worth taking a risk on. Together, they could face whatever obstacles life threw their way. Over the next few months, Mateo and Ella worked to rebuild their relationship on a foundation of complete honesty. Mateo opened up about his past, sharing painful memories he'd long kept buried. Ella supported him as he wrestled with guilt and trauma, encouraging him to seek therapy. In turn, Ella let down her own walls, confiding her deepest fears and insecurities. She'd always been guarded, afraid of getting hurt, but Mateo's vulnerability inspired her to be more open. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day. They learned to communicate better, to truly listen to each other. The passion between them burned hotter than ever, fueled by their deeper emotional intimacy. But their happiness was threatened when Mateo's past caught up with them. One night, as they were walking home from dinner, a black SUV screeched to a halt beside them. Before they could react, two men jumped out and grabbed Mateo, shoving him into the vehicle. "Ella, run!" Mateo yelled as the door slammed shut. The SUV peeled away, leaving Ella standing frozen in shock on the sidewalk. For the next 48 hours, Ella lived in a nightmare of fear and helplessness. She went to the police, but without proof of Mateo's true identity, they were skeptical of her story. She reached out to the few contacts from his past that Mateo had told her about, but no one had any information. Just when Ella was about to lose hope, her phone rang with an unknown number. It was Mateo, his voice weak and ragged. "Ella, listen carefully," he said. "I don't have much time. They want the account numbers for the offshore accounts I set up for the syndicate. If I don't give them the information in the next hour, they'll kill me." "Oh God, Mateo," Ella gasped. "What can I do?" "There's a safety deposit box at Manhattan Savings Bank," he told her. "Box 1573. The key is hidden in a fake electrical outlet behind the dresser in our bedroom. Inside the box is a flash drive with all the account information." Ella's heart raced. "I'll get it right away. But Mateo, if we give them that information..." "I know," he said grimly. "It could implicate me in their crimes. I could go to prison, but I don't care about that anymore. All I care about is surviving this so I can come home to you." Tears streamed down Ella's face. "I love you," she choked out. "Please stay alive. I can't lose you." "I love you too," Mateo said softly. "No matter what happens, remember that." The line went dead. Ella sprang into action, racing to retrieve the flash drive. Her hands shook as she handed it over to the menacing men who showed up at the designated meeting spot. "If anything happens to Mateo, I'll go straight to the police with everything I know," she warned them. The leader of the group sneered. "You better hope Loverboy kept his mouth shut about us, or you'll both end up at the bottom of the East River." Ella's heart pounded as she watched them drive away. Had she done the right thing, or had she just made everything worse? Hours crawled by with no word. Ella paced their apartment, jumping at every sound. Just before dawn, there was a knock at the door. She flung it open to find Mateo standing there, bruised and disheveled, but alive. Ella threw herself into his arms, sobbing with relief. Mateo held her tightly, murmuring soothing words in Spanish. When she finally pulled back to look at him, Ella saw a mix of love, gratitude, and resolve in Mateo's eyes. "It's over," he told her. "I've made a deal with the FBI. In exchange for my testimony, they're offering me full immunity and witness protection. But Ella, it means we'll have to leave everything behind, start over somewhere new with new identities. I'll understand if that's too much to ask." Ella silenced him with a kiss. "Mateo, you are my home," she said fiercely. Wherever you go, I go. We're in this together." Mateo's eyes shimmered with tears as he pulled her close again. In that moment, they both knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, their love would see them through. 3 months later, Ella and Mateo stood hand in hand on the deck of a sailboat, watching the sun set over turquoise waters. They'd settled on a small Caribbean island, far from the reach of Mateo's former associates. Their new life was simpler but filled with joy. Ella was writing her novel, inspired by their epic love story. Mateo had discovered a passion for marine conservation. They spent their days swimming in crystal-clear waters, exploring lush rainforests, and falling more in love with each passing moment. As twilight painted the sky in vibrant hues, Mateo turned to Ella with a soft smile. "Still no regrets?" he asked. Ella's heart swelled as she gazed at the man who had turned her world upside down in the most wonderful way. "Not a single one," she replied, pulling him in for a kiss. Their lips met as the first stars appeared overhead, a promise of endless possibilities stretching out before them. Whatever the future held, Ella and Mateo would face it together. Two souls forever intertwined by a love that had overcome every obstacle. As they sailed into the deepening night, Ella reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. From that first chance meeting in a crowded subway station to the harrowing ordeal that had tested their bond, every twist and turn had led them here. She thought of the pain and fear they'd endured, but also the profound joy and passion they'd discovered together. Their love had been forged in fire, emerging stronger and purer for all they'd overcome. Ella knew there would likely be more challenges ahead. Starting over in a new place with new identities wouldn't be easy. There would be moments of homesickness, of missing their old lives. But Ella knew that as long as she had Mateo by her side, she could face anything. As they sailed into the deepening twilight, Ella reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. From that first chance meeting in a crowded subway station to the harrowing ordeal that had tested their bond, every twist and turn had led them here. She thought of the pain and fear they'd endured, but also the profound joy and passion they'd discovered together. Their love had been forged in fire, emerging stronger and purer for all they'd overcome. Ella knew there would likely be more challenges ahead. Starting over in a new place with new identities wouldn't be easy. There would be moments of homesickness, of missing their families and former lives. The threat of Mateo's past catching up with them would always linger in the back of their minds. But as she gazed at Mateo's profile silhouetted against the fading light, Ella felt a deep sense of peace. Whatever obstacles they faced, they would face them together. Their bond had been tested and proven unbreakable. Mateo turned to her with a soft smile, as if sensing her thoughts. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her from behind as they looked out at the endless horizon. "What are you thinking about, mi amor?" he murmured, nuzzling her neck. Ella leaned back against his solid warmth. "Just how lucky I am to have found you. How grateful I am for this second chance at life with you." Mateo's arms tightened around her. "I'm the lucky one," he said. "You saw the good in me when I couldn't see it myself. You gave me a reason to be a better man." Ella turned in his arms to face him, cupping his cheek tenderly. "We saved each other," she said, "and we'll keep saving each other every day." As their lips met in a deep, passionate kiss, Ella felt that familiar spark ignite between them. No matter how many times they came together, the electricity never faded. Later that night, as they lay tangled in the sheets of their small cabin, Ella traced lazy patterns on Mateo's chest. His fingers combed gently through her hair as they basked in the afterglow. "Tell me about our future," Ella said softly. "What do you see for us?" Mateo was quiet for a moment, considering. "I see us building a life here," he said finally. "A small house on the beach, you writing your novels, me teaching scuba diving or leading eco-tours. Maybe a couple of kids someday." He said the last part hesitantly, as if unsure how she'd react. Ella's heart swelled with love and hope. "That sounds perfect," she whispered, blinking back happy tears. "All of it." Mateo pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Whatever the future holds, as long as I'm with you, I know it will be beautiful." As Ella drifted off to sleep in Mateo's arms, she felt truly at peace for the first time in her life. They had overcome so much to be together. She knew that with Mateo by her side, she could face anything life threw their way. Their love story had been full of drama, danger, and passion, but Ella knew the best was yet to come. This was just the beginning of their happily ever after. In the years that followed, Ella and Mateo built the life they'd dreamed of on their tropical island paradise. Ella's novel became a bestseller. Inspired by their epic romance, Mateo found his calling as a marine conservationist, working to protect the coral reefs and sea life he'd grown to love. They married in a small beachside ceremony, exchanging vows with their toes in the sand as the sun set over the turquoise waters. A year later, they welcomed twins, a boy and a girl with Mateo's dark curls and Ella's green eyes. There were challenges, of course. Moments of fear when a stranger would look at Mateo too long, or a boat would linger suspiciously offshore. The occasional bout of homesickness or doubt, but through it all, their love remained steadfast. They faced each obstacle as a team, drawing strength from each other. With every passing year, their bond grew deeper and their commitment stronger. Ella never regretted the risks she'd taken or the sacrifices she'd made to be with Mateo. The life they'd built together was more beautiful and fulfilling than anything she could have imagined. As she watched Mateo teaching their children to swim in the crystal-clear waters, Ella's heart overflowed with gratitude. Their journey hadn't been easy, but it had led them exactly where they were meant to be. She thought back to that fateful day in the subway station, when a handsome stranger had caught her as she stumbled. How could she have known then that she was falling into the arms of her soulmate? That one chance encounter would change the course of her entire life. Ella smiled to herself, marveling at the mysterious ways love worked. She and Mateo had been destined to find each other, drawn together by an invisible thread of fate. Despite all the odds against them, their love had conquered all. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in vibrant hues, Mateo emerged from the water with their giggling children. He gave Ella that heart-stopping smile that still made her pulse race after all these years. "Te amo, mi vida," he said softly, pulling her close for a kiss that tasted of salt and sunshine. Ella's arms wound around his neck as she returned the kiss with equal passion. "I love you too," she murmured against his lips. "Always and forever." And as they stood there on the beach, wrapped in each other's arms with their children playing nearby, Ella knew with absolute certainty that this was her happy ending. The love story she'd always dreamed of writing had become her reality. With Mateo by her side, every day was an adventure. Every moment was filled with joy and passion. Their love had overcome every obstacle, emerging stronger and more beautiful with each challenge they faced together. Ella knew that whatever the future held, as long as she had Mateo and their family, she had everything she could ever want or need. Their epic romance had only just begun, and the best was yet to come. As the stars began to twinkle overhead, Ella sent up a silent prayer of gratitude for the twists of fate that had brought her and Mateo together. Their love story was one for the ages, full of passion, danger, and unwavering devotion. But more than that, it was a testament to the power of following your heart, of taking risks for love, of believing that true happiness is possible, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. Ella squeezed Mateo's hand, feeling that familiar spark of electricity at his touch. As they walked along the moonlit beach with their children, she knew that this was only the beginning. The greatest adventure of their lives was still unfolding, one day at a time. And Ella couldn't wait to see where their love would take them next.